everybody? This is another episode of Coordinated Chaos. In this episode, we will be recapping what happened in Week 14 of the NFL season, as well as we're going to preview Week 15's Thursday Night Football game. Let's jump right into this thing. We have a lot of games to go through, a lot of playoff implications. This is what's going to happen the last few weeks of the season here. Going to talk about a lot more games that have more meaning going down the stretch of the season. So let's jump right into this past week's Thursday Night Football game, which a lot of people expected, even including myself. I can't say I didn't think this game was going to be terrible. It was a bad Patriots team versus a kind of in decline Pittsburgh Steelers team. This game actually ended up being way more entertaining than I initially anticipated it being. Right off the rip, you had Bailey Zappi actually making some throws all around the field there. He got Hunter Henry involved early in the offense, and essentially they just operated on the back of Ezekiel Elliott, who had a very good game in fantasy. If you have him there, if you picked him up and started him, you are a hero for your own fantasy team. You made the right decision there. But like I said, Hunter Henry had 2 touchdowns in this game. Ezekiel Elliott got super involved in the passing game as well, with Ramondre Stevenson out for this game. And they jumped out to a quick, I think it was 21-3 early on in this game for the Patriots. And of course, on the opposite side of the field there, the Pittsburgh Steelers had to operate with Mitchell Trubisky at the quarterback position, rather than Kenny Pickett, who is dealing with an ankle injury, had surgery on that. They're looking to hopefully get him back sometime soon this season. But honestly, it's going to have to be sooner rather than later, considering how they looked with Mitchell Trubisky in there at quarterback. He looked pretty awful. I really didn't realize just how bad Mitchell Trubisky was at playing the position until I watched what transpired on Thursday night. That was very ugly. He made a few plays here and there. He tried to make some plays with his legs, which I think was just more of a product of him not really trusting the O-line to keep him protected and stand in there and make some throws. But he tried to get them to make a comeback in this game, but it just fell short a little bit there. But yeah, man, I mean, it was early on. Mitchell Trubisky was missing a lot of throws, and the crowd in Pittsburgh was chanting for the emergence of a Mason Rudolph, which is just really funny around Christmas time. That's the thing that they're chanting right there. So it was crazy. I mean, who would think that the Pittsburgh Steelers crowd would be chanting for Mason Rudolph to basically take over for anybody in 2023? Just a crazy circumstance, but Mitchell Trubisky was just playing so bad. But at the end of the day, the Pittsburgh Steelers could not mount the comeback, and I think the Patriots won 21-18. So they tried to win at the end, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and keep themselves in contention here in the AFC playoff picture. They are still the 6th seed, so they're still on the edge there, but they are definitely stocked down right now. If I were to have to put my finger on the pulse, just because of the fact that we don't know how long Kenny Pickett's going to have to be out with that ankle injury, who, he got surgery on. So if Kenny Pickett if Mitchell Trubisky has to be the guy moving forward, even if they go to Mason Rudolph, I don't like their chances to stay, in the playoff picture. Let's move on to the Buccaneers versus the Falcons. Obviously, this was a huge NFC South bout to take over first place in the NFC South. So this was in Atlanta. I really thought Atlanta would have a chance here to go ahead and kind of stake their claim as the division winner. If they were to do that, they would be definitely the favorite to win the division at that point. And really, honestly, Desmond Ridder and that offense did everything they kind of could to win this game. The Falcons defense kind of gave it away at the very end there. Baker Mayfield led the Buccaneers on a game-winning drive there at the end. And, man, the Buccaneers are starting to get a little bit, they're getting a little bit more feisty as the season goes on. And I think they're probably maybe not as talented as the Falcons overall, but I think I just trust Baker Mayfield maybe a little bit more than Desmond Ridder, who actually had a really good game in this game. So I'm going to give him credit for that. He has had some very rough games this season in general, but that game against the Buccaneers was a good one. But it's a defense you can pass against. They have been a pass funnel all season long. They've been a team where they really hammer home trying to stop the run, and then they kind of let up a lot of plays in the passing game, which I don't know what kind of scheme that Todd Bowles is trying to run there, but it doesn't seem to be doing a great job necessarily. But they got the job done in this one. I think it's more of a product of the talent that the Buccaneers have on offense in general. Rashad White has been a godsend for their offense this season. He has been incredibly productive in the passing game. On the ground, he hasn't been super efficient, but he's gotten better as the season's gone on. I think he's a guy that needs to kind of get into a rhythm in the offense, but Tampa Bay gets the job done in this one, take over possession of the NFC South as the representative for them going into the playoffs, and the Falcons are one of the wild card seeds right this second as it stands now. Moving on to maybe the game of the weekend, Ravens versus Rams. This game was awesome. I mean, this game had everything. You had Lamar Jackson having an MVP type of game in this one. The only reason really the Ravens were even in this game because the Rams were playing incredible football. Matthew Stafford has been playing out of his mind. If anybody's really been paying attention, I know a lot of people probably haven't just because of the fact that they haven't been great all season. I mean, they have I think they have a winning record at this point, but man, no, actually they don't. They're actually 6-7. Let me correct myself on that. But even basically, what I'm saying is Matthew Stafford. A lot of people are looking over him or looking through that Rams team right now because they're just not super. They're not over 500. They're not even 500 at all. They're below it. But they're still a very feisty team. The defense is playing great for the amount of talent they have on the team right now. And like I said, Matthew Stafford's playing great. Puka Nacua, who would have seen that coming, playing just incredibly well. Cooper Kupp got super involved in this game, which they needed him to. And so the offense was clicking, and they were keeping right in pace with the Ravens all day long. This was in Baltimore, so it was a tough environment to come into. Bad weather in this one too. It was raining, it was cold, it was dreary out there. And the Rams, I mean, Kyron Williams playing great football right now as well. Dude, they have everything going over there. I would not want to see the Los Angeles Rams in the first round of the playoffs for any of the teams in the NFC right now because I think they have the ability to play spoiler and upset a top seed in the NFC playoffs. So Rams playing very well, but like I said, man, Lamar Jackson put the team on his back, made some very good plays at the end of this football game in order to secure the win, and the Ravens get a big one there and basically take over the number one seed in the AFC based on some things that happened on Monday night yesterday. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so I wanted to get all the games in before I started to make this podcast. So yeah, Ravens hold on to the one seed. It's they're playing good football right now. The defense is playing well. The offense is a little bit herky-jerky, I'm not going to lie. But it seems as if, if one portion of the offense is not playing as well, one of the other parts begins to step up. And so they're playing good football. Let's move on to the Lions versus the Bears. Man, not a whole lot to say here because the Bears are just not really in playoff contention. I guess they technically could be if they just keep winning. I just don't see that really happening. I think they want, one of the higher draft picks, so I think they'll probably end up losing a few of these games. But they came in and played really, really hard against this Lions team who they played hard against a couple weeks ago when they were in Detroit. Detroit made a comeback and won that game. And since then, Detroit has been a little bit up and down, man. They have been a little bit more inconsistent as of late, and I think that is not good when it comes down to this late in the season. If you're starting to have some doubts about some teams, they're starting to show right now, and that includes even my own team, and I'll get to that later because that really that rubbed me the wrong way all weekend long. But anyways, Detroit not really looking so hot right now. Jared Goff is looking more and more pedestrian as the season progresses. The defense is starting to let up some plays, especially in the secondary. The run defense is still pretty solid, but they're not as good as they were earlier on in the season. So just not really clicking on all cylinders, the Detroit Lions in general. It looks like the Bears just kind of have their number. It's just one of those matchups or one of those teams where the matchups just do not really go in the favor of the Detroit Lions, and the Bears get a huge win in this one. I mean, it's not like they're really playing for a whole lot, but they're playing for the confidence of their team moving forward and their playmakers. Justin Fields is playing for his job, essentially. DJ Moore wants to continue to get chemistry with him as the quarterback and the playmaker, and DJ Moore has been playing great football as of late. They're essentially kind of funneling all the offense through him right now, as they should, because he's obviously their best offensive weapon right now. So get the ball in the hands of your best playmakers and, hope for the best, obviously, and that's what the Chicago Bears have been doing as of late, I should say. Let's go on to the next one, Bengals versus Colts. This game was very interesting. I wholly thought that the Colts were were going to kind of get back on track here, and they were going to really make a real push for the playoffs. And the Bengals, man, they've been playing great football. All of a sudden, Joe Burrow, goes out of the lineup. You got Jake Browning in there. Obviously, they lose the first game that he comes in with the Steelers there. It was not a good game for him. And then since then, man, where has this offense been, when Joe Burrow was healthy? I feel like this offense got so much more creative and just they're finding ways to get the ball in the hands of some of their playmakers, even if it's guys way down the depth chart like Chase Brown, who at the start of the season, nobody knew who he was. And the only reason I know who he is because he's the twin brother of the Eagles. I think he was a second or third round pick in the draft for the Eagles, and Sidney Brown. They both played at Illinois, and they were both good players while they were there. And so it's really fun to see him kind of getting, a little bit more acclimated into that offense and just getting some utilization, because he's an incredibly athletic and fast, just athlete in general. So, Chase Brown gets involved there. He takes a screen to the house, and that offense is just operating at a high level with a backup quarterback in Jake Browning, who nobody thought was going to, be this productive early on in the season. So, I'm shocked at what Jake Browning and that offense has been doing for the Bengals. The Bengals defense is playing good once again, and they stifled the Colts. And so the Bengals are in position to potentially go in, and they're on the bubble right now. But man, they're 7-6, and they could really sneak into the playoffs with Jake Browning as the guy, and maybe potentially play spoiler once again, just like some of these other teams like the Rams. Let's move on to the Browns versus the Jaguars. This game, I actually personally bet on this one. It was Browns -3. I was kind of banking on the fact that Trevor Lawrence was not going to play in this game after suffering the ankle injury early on in the past week. But it ended up Trevor Lawrence ends up playing in this one. He I don't know how, his legs are just made of jello apparently, and he can just do whatever. It's crazy that he was able to play in this game and play relatively well. Not as good as he probably could have if he was like fully healthy, obviously. But he gave the Jaguars a chance to kind of get back in this game, and but the Browns defense was just a little bit too much for him. He did throw 3 picks to them, which they just forced. They're just such a good defense. And then you got on the opposite side of the field, you got Joe Flacco, man. Joe Flacco comes in off the couch couple weeks ago, and now he's slinging it out there, man. He's still got a rocket for an arm. He always has had a great arm in the NFL, but he's making some plays that I feel like he hadn't made in years. Like we haven't seen this type of Joe Flacco, I feel like, since he was with the Ravens. And so it's been impressive what he's been able to do. He's just getting the ball to his playmakers. David Njoku has a great game in this game, has 2 touchdowns as well. Man, he's doing a great job. Everybody that has Browns players in fantasy is stoked that Joe Flacco's in there rather than either DTR or whoever may end up, trying to be a backup for the Browns. They have announced, Kevin Stefanski has announced officially that Joe Flacco will start the rest of the season for the Browns, which is a good thing because I think with the way that defense is playing, with the playmakers they do have, and the running game they have, the O-line they have, and Joe Flacco playing the way he is, I think they can really make some noise in the playoffs if they are able to stay in there. So I'm really excited. For whatever reason, I just love this story of Joe Flacco coming off the couch and just playing for a playoff potential contending team. So let's go on to the next one. Jets versus Texans. Man, this game was crazy. Obviously, one of the storylines is this was played in New York in MetLife. It was a Jets home game, of course, and right off the rip, you have Nico Collins going down with a calf injury, which he re-aggravated. He had one earlier on in the season, kind of got healthy again, and he's been playing very good football as of late. Probably makes one move in this game on that MetLife turf, which has been just eating away great athletes all season long, just ending seasons, putting people on the IR all season long. That MetLife Stadium needs to be burned up and just tore down completely. They need to revamp that whole thing. MetLife Stadium is already not a great venue in itself, and then the field is the worst in all of football. It is responsible for more injuries than any other field in all of football. They have to do something about that. They have to go all grass for all these stadiums. It's just a shame that it's taking away from the product of the NFL because it's taking away a lot of star players when it comes down to injuries because of the field. It's just ridiculous. But because of that, you have Nico Collins out. You already had Tank Dell out because of an injury that was sustained last week or 2 weeks ago, I believe. And so the Houston Texans offense is already at, a disadvantage. Also, Dalton Schultz is out in this game as well. So you just have a bunch of backups running around out there for the Houston Texans. And CJ Stroud, he's a great player. He's a great quarterback. He's a rookie still, and he's still going to make mistakes. And if you take away a lot of his weapons, bad things are bound to happen. And they end up losing this game to the Zach Wilson now led Jets for the second time this season. And man, he looked pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think the factor of him already being benched and like the kind of mentality of what do I have to lose was really nice and present in this game. Like, he seemed much more willy-nilly. He seemed like free out there. He was just slinging the ball around. And one thing that I can say that like obviously points towards being more productive on the offensive side of the ball, he was getting the ball to Garrett Wilson at a high clip. He was getting the ball in the hands of Breece Hall, who is probably their best playmaker on offense. He is a great running back, and I can't wait to see what he can do when he has, like Aaron Rodgers and like a decent O-line at some point for the New York Jets. But obviously the Jets defense was smothering on CJ Stroud in that offense without all the weapons. It was raining in New York, or I should say East Rutherford, New Jersey. That's where the MetLife Stadium is, which needs to be torn down, as I've alluded to. But either way, the Jets defense stifled CJ Stroud in that offense, and then you had Zach Wilson actually putting together a productive offensive game, and that just led to the Jets winning a football game that not a lot of people expected them to going into it, based off the way that CJ Stroud and that Texans team have been playing as of late. I'll move on now. Let's go to the Vikings versus the Raiders. Not a whole lot to say here. An absolute ugly, putrid game to watch with your eyeballs. Your eyeballs probably bled after watching any of this. I only was watching little clips because I was watching Red Zone, so I saw bits and pieces of it. But obviously they were moving the ball between the 50s, basically. It's not even a thing. Between the 40s, I should say, all game long. Neither team could really get in position to win the game. And then finally, the Vikings decide to go ahead and bench Josh Dobbs, who has just absolutely turned into a pumpkin at this point. He had his Cinderella moment, and now it is over, and he is playing terrible football. He gets benched for Nick Mullins, who comes in and doesn't do like a whole lot better of a job, to be completely honest, on offense, but he does get them in field goal range to make a game-winning kick because the Raiders couldn't get anything going on offense either. Just an absolutely terrible game to watch, but Vikings win 3-0, which is crazy. I feel like that's the first time that's happened in a long time or something like that, but just Vikings stay in that position in one of the wild card spots in the NFC playoffs, and that was a big win for them. They needed it, but things are not looking great on offense. Josh Dobbs throws a hospital ball to Justin Jefferson in this game, and he makes a great catch and then gets destroyed, and probably, if he doesn't he probably broke some ribs on it. I mean, the guy absolutely, Marcus Epps absolutely crushed his rib cage when he caught it. So we'll see what his diagnosis is going forward, but if he's out for another extended period of time, that's just unfortunate for fantasy managers. It's unfortunate for the hopes of the Vikings to continue to push to make a better seeding for themselves in the NFC playoff picture, but it just kind of is what it is. The Vikings, Brian Flores has that defense playing good. That's one positive, but offensively right now, it's not so hot. We'll move on to the 49ers and the Seahawks. In this game, I was expecting, Geno Smith to just kind of gut it out and, end up starting in this game with a groin injury he suffered, I guess, earlier on in the week in practice. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it came from the game before against the whoever they played before. Was it the Cowboys then? I don't know. He just kind of showed up randomly on the injury report with a groin injury. And I thought he was going to try to gut it out, but it ended up being Drew Lock in this game. I bet on this game, the Seahawks plus 13.5, and they covered somehow. I even said on my social medias, or not my social medias, but my content places like YouTube Shorts and TikTok, I was like, if Geno doesn't start in this, I don't blame you for not betting this bet. I probably personally wouldn't either, and I ended up not because I couldn't trust Drew Lock in that position. I still posted the video. But man, I just couldn't really put my money where my mouth is with Drew Lock at the helm. They still covered, which is hilarious. They tried to fight. They really did. But the 49ers they just come at you in waves, man, and you can't stop their offense for too long, honestly. Like you can maybe make them punt a couple times in a game, but once they start getting into a rhythm, you got Deebo Samuel's going crazy right now. He's such a good player, and like it pisses me off because he's just such a crap talker when it comes to the Eagles. But either way, you got to respect the player and how good he's been playing as of late, because he seems like one of the few engines that makes that entire offense run. Him and Trent Williams, because earlier on in the season when both of those guys were out, they did have a 3-game losing streak, and a lot of people kind of tend to forget about that a little bit. So basically, the 49ers are banking on continuing to stay healthy for the rest of the season, because whenever Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan have all of their chips to work with when it comes to the players and playmakers, that offense is basically unstoppable. But once you start to take away a few of those pieces from him, they start to get a little bit more iffy on the offensive side of the ball. The defense is still good, one of the best D-lines in all of football. Linebacker core, Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, both incredible players, fast and physical. And then the back end they're not great, but they're physical. They're going to hit you whenever you catch the ball, and so they like to put the will of just their strength and physicality on you at all times. And man, they're just such a good team when all healthy. So 49ers roll once again, and they have taken over officially as the 1 seed because of some things that happened later on in the weekend. Let's move on to the Bills versus the Chiefs. Man, a lot of controversy in this game. And why is it always these two teams, when they match up, something's always got to go haywire? Obviously, a couple years ago, however long ago that might have been 3 years ago now, when the Chiefs and the Bills played against each other in the divisional round of the playoffs. You had the 13-second game where they had to change the rules because the Bills didn't think that overtime rules were fair, because they didn't get a chance to answer, blah, 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 blah. Now the overtime rules are changed, whatever. Now in this game, man, the game ends essentially on, Kadarius Toney lines up offsides. They snap the ball. They get the ball to Travis Kelce, who is running down the middle of the field, who then pitches it. He laterals it with throwing it like a quarterback. He throws a spiral to Kadarius Toney, who takes it in for the touchdown, and they call it all back because Kadarius Toney lined up way offsides. That had the whole Chiefs sideline, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, everybody up in arms about how you can't call that call at that spot in such a big game with a minute left, blah, 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 blah. And man, the hypocrisy in that statement itself is just incredibly sweet, considering what happened in the Super Bowl. I was there personally. I spent a lot of money to be there, and I had to watch my team lose essentially on a holding call, which was a holding call. But if you're going to use the exact same mentality that Patrick Mahomes used in the press conference after this football game about you can't call that penalty in that spot and negate such a big play and blah, 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 because of the timing, the position of it at the end of the game, then essentially if you use that same logic, then the Eagles should have at least had a chance to tie the Super Bowl and go to overtime there to potentially win the Super Bowl. So you can't have your cake and eat it too, Pat. I love you as a player. I think you're the greatest of all time, really. But you just can't complain when you essentially won the Super Bowl on the same type of play. So I think that's a bigger deal than losing a regular season game to the Bills, who are a decent team. I think they're going to get better. I think they're probably going to still make the playoffs. They are on the bubble right now, but that's besides the point, I guess. But yeah, controversy always with these teams. Bills get a huge win here. Josh Allen is dragging this team kicking and screaming right now, trying to get them into the playoffs, as their defense has been not so hot as of late because of all the injuries they've sustained throughout the season. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are reeling a little bit because their playmakers are terrible. Kadarius Toney has cost the Kansas City Chiefs at least 2 or 3 games this season because of his mistakes. The wide receivers and drops have cost them games this season at the Eagles, basically. And just the Chiefs can't get out of their own way right now because essentially it seems like Andy Reid is giving Patrick Mahomes the Donovan McNabb treatment right now. Donovan McNabb never had weapons his entire time, essentially, when he was in Philly, except for the one time they traded for T.O., and then that relationship never really worked out. And otherwise, he never had good weapons until the very, very end of his career in 2008 when they finally drafted Macklin and Deshaun Jackson, and he actually had those guys. But man, it's crazy that the Chiefs have just gone from like one of the top contenders to, I mean, they're still in the playoffs. Obviously, they're still a 3 seed in the AFC, but it's just going in the wrong direction right now because the weapons are just not good. The defense is good for the Chiefs, and they're holding people to decent scores, decent amount of points scored. But the Chiefs just can't capitalize on offense because their playmakers are so bad right now. Outside of Travis Kelce and basically Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice has been a nice player for them, but it's just not enough right now because they don't respect the other players. The opposing defenses don't care about their weapons. Let's move on. We have the Broncos versus the Chargers. Not a whole lot to say here. Chargers stink. Brandon Staley got to go. I've said that like 3 weeks in a row now or more probably. Justin Herbert once again gets hurt in this game, and Easton Stick has to come in relief of him after he, I think, fractures his middle finger on his throwing hand. So this is the second finger injury he's had this season. Luckily, the other one was on his offhand, but it still affected his play. And now he is not going to be able to play probably for the rest of the season, to be completely honest. I don't see him. Like, he shouldn't start. They should probably just go for a better draft pick at this point. So Justin Herbert probably done. Brandon Staley definitely done. Broncos get the job done, and Sean Payton looking better and better as a hire for the Broncos. Man, I didn't see this coming. Like, after that, how bad of a start, 1-5 to start the season, and now he's in clear position to potentially make the playoffs here. He's at 7-6, and like I said, the Steelers are kind of looking a little iffy. The Colts are looking a little iffy right now. They can slide in there, and that would be very impressive after a 1-5 start. But Russell Wilson playing much better. Cortland Sutton still scoring touchdowns all over the place. It's crazy what they've been able to do on offense. And then the defense, the turnaround they've had with Vance Joseph there has been incredible as well. So good for the Broncos, man. I kind of want to see them in the playoffs at this point because they're getting to become a little bit more fun team to watch on offense, and I kind of looking forward to seeing it. Next game, man, this was ugly. Incoming mini rant, Eagles versus Cowboys. This game was straight up ugly. The Eagles did not show up ready to play this game, just like they didn't show up last week to play the 49ers. I don't know. The only excuse I can give them at this point is fatigue factor, the way the schedule landed, the very little rest they've had in between all these games against top competition in the NFL, from playing the Cowboys to then going on the bye, to then playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and then the Buffalo Bills, and then San Fran, and then the Cowboys again. And then this week they have to go on the road once again and play the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. So, there's no rest for the wicked right here for the Eagles. They have to hone it back in and get back get back on their winning ways against this Seattle Seahawks team who is kind of reeling right now. I don't know if Geno. I assume Geno will probably play in this one against the Eagles when they play the Seahawks this next weekend, or I guess Monday night, because it got flexed. But anyways, basically, where do I start about this Eagles-Cowboys game? Honestly, the Eagles' defense is Swiss cheese right now. The front four is not getting enough pressure alone, so then you have Sean Desai, the new defensive coordinator, sometimes trying to send 5 or more to try to get some type of pressure on opposing offenses or opposing QBs in general. And then that just leaves people in the back end. You just have numbers at this point. And right now, the Eagles are struggling to tackle. So if you're leaving them without numbers on the back end, if somebody catches the ball and they have yardage to run after the catch, and on top of that, the Eagles are not doing a good job of tackling right now, then you have a recipe for disaster on the defensive side of the ball. They are now ranked 32nd in all of football in, basically every statistic because of how much they've gotten passed on the last 3 or 4 games in a row now. Just ridiculous amounts of points scored against them now. I don't know what the answer is on the defensive side of the ball, honestly. They probably need to just start really disguising more coverages and things of that nature. It's not like they use one coverage and that's it. They use a ton of different coverages, but they don't disguise them well. They don't mix them up. They line it up, and the opposing QB can just read exactly what's going on. They can read what the coverage is. They're not dumb. So it's frustrating to watch the defense not be able to stop really anybody at all. And then on the offensive side of the ball, man, this was just an ugly effort. I mean, obviously, you have your three best playmakers on offense all fumble the ball at some points in this game. Two high leverage situations, they fumbled the ball. Obviously, Jalen Hurts on the first drive, he goes down. They're in the right near the red zone. I think he had literally just gotten himself into the red zone when he ran the ball as a QB draw, and he gets tackled and he gets the ball punched out of his hands. They fumble. Cowboys recover, go straight down the field and score. And then you're already behind the 8 ball against the Cowboys team who love to have the lead, who then can just kind of pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. So then you have pressure coming all the time, all game long. At one point, A.J. Brown catches a ball, and he's going for a first down into Cowboys territory once again. Gets the ball punched out by Stephon Gilmore. Cowboys recover the football, go down, score again. And then it happened later on in the game with Devontae Smith when the game was kind of pretty much already in hand. The Eagles weren't going to win the game at that point, but maybe you would have given them a little bit of a glimmer of hope to potentially get back in the game if Devontae Smith did not catch the ball and once again get the ball punched out of his hands, and the Cowboys get possession, go down, and I think kicked a field goal there. Just an ugly just game in general by the Eagles. Just did not show up for this one. And on top of that, my main concern, I know that the defense right now, just talent-wise, is not great. You have two cornerbacks that are over 30, so they're getting slower. They're still good players. They're still very solid. You have a safety that you traded for at the deadline who's over 30, who seems to be getting slow as well. You have a second-year player in Reed Blankenship, housing the other side of the field there at the safety position. He is a solid player as well, not anything really to write home about. And then you have a bunch of young players in and out of the lineup trying to supplement the cornerback, the slot cornerback, nickel cornerback situation because of the absence of Avonte Maddox, who tore his pec earlier on in the season. It's just a lot of moving parts back there, a lot of old, a lot of slow, a lot of not very good tackling players back there, which is just leading to just a lot of yards after contact, yards after catch, things of that nature, which is just demoralizing for your defense in general and your team in general when you can't tackle anybody and rally and get to the ball and stop guys from getting first downs and touchdowns in general. And then the most worrying and concerning part about the Eagles right now is honestly the offense. Jalen Hurts does not look super comfortable in the pocket right now. I don't want to say he's like super regressing, but he doesn't look as good as he did last year. And I think it has a lot to do with the offense and not necessarily just him being the problem. I think this offense right now is just predictable, uncreative, vanilla. I don't know how else to basically describe just a uninspiring scheme in general right now. It seems like, and long story short, essentially, it seems like Shane Steichen, the now head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, had a binder full of really cool plays that he used all of last year when the Eagles went and just ransacked everybody to the Super Bowl. I think he just took his binder, and the Eagles coaching staff did not think it was a good idea to try to make some copies of those plays that he has in his only specific binder, and he took all those plays and brought them to Indianapolis, and now the Eagles have none because the Eagles offense is just not creative right now, man. Like, it's crazy. If you watch the games, there's like one or two plays per game you're like, wow, that was kind of a cool play. Like, why don't you do that like kind of more often and then make some plays off that, and I don't know, just play the like design some plays, man, that get your guys open. And it's not so, the scheme isn't so our talented players like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, you guys just run your route more perfect than the defense can guard you. Like, that's essentially the whole offense right now. Is just our talented players are going to out-talent your talented players on defense. And that is, like, hope is not a strategy. That is not how things are supposed to work in the NFL. At some point and at points in games, that has to be the case where your talented players have to make plays because they get paid to do that. That's their job. But at the same time, the coaching staff has to figure out ways to get your guys open. Have some easy buttons in the offensive play calling where it's like, let's get Jalen some layups here. Let's get him. It's like the basketball analogy when it's like, you're not shooting good, you're in a slump, and all you have to do is see the ball go in the hoop. Just get yourself a layup. That's all you need, to see the ball go in the hoop, and then maybe you'll get back into a rhythm and you'll be able to see the end of the tunnel, essentially, when it comes to being in a slump. But right now, Jalen Hurts is having to operate an offense where it seems like all the plays are developing forever. They're all downfield routes. They're all taking forever to get going. And the defenses are seeing that this is the way the offense is operating, and they're just blitzing. And so Jalen Hurts, the only thing he can do is just backpedal into oblivion and then just hope to God that one of his receivers has gotten open by then. And a lot of the time, they're getting open, but at that point, they know where the ball's going, and it just seems like the Eagles have to start getting Jalen Hurts into more of a rhythm, get him some short passes in the offense, and then he can start slinging the football down the field a little bit. But when you start the game off and it's just like 4 verts, and then it's just a giant post route to Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown, it's just he's having to start the game off with just like crazy difficult throws, and it's like, man, just give him some easy stuff so then he has the confidence to make these throws, because he's even making the throws and they're on point for the most part, but like you have to get him into more of a rhythm. And it's just, there's a lot going wrong with the Eagles offense right now. I don't know if it's going to be fixed this year. I have hope that it can. I have hope that against these next few teams like the Seahawks, who have had a bad defense, the Giants, who have been just a mediocre team thus far this season, and the Cardinals, who have a bad defense as well. I hope that the Eagles can kind of start implementing some new stuff into the offense. I know it's week 14 at this point, going into week 15, and that's not when you want to start implementing certain things and changing things in the offense. But at the same time, the way the offense is operating right now is just not productive. And so I hope they can get more creative as the season goes on. I don't have confidence that's going to be the way it happens. I think they're probably still going to continue to just rely on talent to get them through the playoffs. But they basically have to win out. If they win out, they win the division no matter what. So that's still on the table. I know they just lost to the Cowboys. If they split the series with them, I know it seems like the sky is falling, but they're still a good team. I don't think this team is complete frauds. I just think right now, if they don't get more creative on both sides of the ball, it's going to be a long off season, because there's going to be decisions made about play calling, about the offensive coordinator, if Nick Sirianni is even a good offensive mind. He's a great leader of men, a great motivator, a great head coach when it comes to situational football. But otherwise, he might have to have some help in the offensive coordinator room. And if that's the case, then there's going to be a revolving door of guys if the offense is ever good again. So a lot to dissect there, but I just had to go on my little mini rant because the Eagles have just not played good football the last 2 weeks, and hopefully they can get it together and just get some easy games under their belt here. But honestly, the way the offense and the way the defense has been playing as of late, these easy games per se against the Seahawks and the Giants twice and the Cardinals are not going to be as easy as they once were, and they can really drop one of these games, and that's the case, then they are going to be the 5th seed in the NFC playoff picture. That's what they are currently now, as they lost to the Cowboys. I fully expect the Cowboys at some point to drop another game, as the rest of their schedule is way more tough. They still have the Bills this upcoming week, then they have this in at the Bills, then they have at the Miami Dolphins, who did just drop a game, which was ugly. And then they also have to play the Detroit Lions, who they're not looking as hot as of late, but they're still a good football team. So I fully expect, like I said, the Cowboys to drop another game. I think the Eagles can win out, but like I said, not as confident as I was a couple weeks ago before the San Fran game, and obviously before this blowout against a division rival. It's just not looking great, but I think they can turn it around and get right before the playoffs begin. Let's move on. Titans versus Dolphins, the Monday Night Football doubleheader games between the Titans, Dolphins, Packers, and Giants. That was crazy. I was watching one game on the TV, one game on the laptop, and it was kind of hard to pay attention to both. But I was mostly paying attention to the Dolphins game. I had some fantasy stuff riding on that game, and so I paid attention most to that one. But man, Dolphins had this game. Titans made some really inopportune mistakes late in this game that I thought really the Dolphins were going to just be able to run the clock out at the end there, but they could not get enough offense going after kind of Tyreek Hill hurt himself earlier on in the game with an ankle injury. He didn't hurt himself. I mean, somebody kind of hip dropped him. It was like a horse collar. It was a bad tackle. It was a dangerous tackle on one of the best players in all of football, which sucks. I have him in Tyreek Hill in fantasy, so moving forward, I hope he can play next week, or else I might be going out in the first round in the fantasy playoffs. Either way, like I said, at the end of this game, the Dolphins had multiple opportunities to run the clock out if they were able to get a few first downs, but the Titans defense kind of stepped up to the plate and did not let them just basically steamroll them. They got some opportunities, and Will Levis took full advantage of it and led some game-winning drives there at the very end. The Dolphins were up 27-13 with less than 3 minutes to go in the game. I think it was specifically like 2 minutes and 37 seconds or something like that, and they were down by 2 scores. And then the Titans just, man, they played good football at the end there, man. Will Levis, I feel like, is the guy moving forward. He's still a little raw, but he will learn as he goes, and he's just got an incredible arm right now. It's just really impressive to watch some of the throw he's able to make. So yeah, Titans get a win. I don't think they're going to really do anything in the AFC playoff picture, but the Dolphins really needed to win this game. It was at home. I actually had a buddy there, and he's a Dolphins fan, so I feel bad for the fact that he had to watch that loss. It was such a tough one when it looks like you're going to win in convincing fashion with less than 3 minutes to go, and then they end up ultimately losing. That's a tough one to swallow and watch. Almost as tough as watching your favorite football team lose to your most hated rival by 20 points on Sunday Night Football on prime time. But, neither here nor there. But yeah, man, just Dolphins lose, which then makes them the 2 seed in the AFC playoff picture as the Ravens take over as the 1 seed. So that stinks for them. Let's move on to the Packers versus the Giants game, man. Tommy DeVito, the story of the last couple weeks, man. He has been getting so much notoriety because he's just super Italian from New Jersey, gets to be the starting quarterback of his hometown team and the New York Giants, and just kind of a cool story. Like, it just is what it is. He's got the whole, like, when they scored, the whole Italian thing, whatever. But yeah, Tommy DeVito, he's been playing good ball as of late. And like I said, the Eagles got to play them twice, and they've been a little feisty as of late. Saquon Barkley playing good football now. The defense has been pretty decent all season for the Giants, but the offense has been so bad usually that you just kind of forget about how good the defense has been playing. But yeah, Giants get a win here. They get an upset over the Packers, who were super favored in this game by like 6.5, I believe. I thought, this is kind of disappointing. I thought the Packers were going to kind of cement themselves as one of the, top wild cards in the division. Just continue to win here at the end. Their schedule's pretty easy. I still think they'll probably make the playoffs in general. They are sitting as the 7 seed right now. They are the last one in right now at 6 and 7 in the NFC playoff picture. So I fully expect them still to make the playoffs, and I think that's going to be fun. I think Jordan Love in that offense is really fun. The Packers defense, I've never really liked it because of Joe Barry. That dude, the defensive coordinator for the Packers, is god awful at his job, if you ask me. There's multiple times every year where you have Preston Smith or some kind of like Rashawn Gary trying to guard Justin Jefferson in the slot, and it's like, what are we doing on offense? Or on defense, I should say. And it's just really, really annoying stuff. And so the Packers, like I said, I think their offense is really fun. Matt LaFleur is still a good coach, and I think they'll be able to make some noise in the playoffs if they get in there. That wraps it up for the Week 14 recap. Let's go on to the Thursday Night Football preview. That is going to be Chargers at Raiders. Obviously, we're not going to have Justin Herbert in this game, so you're going to have Easton Stick starting at the quarterback position for the Chargers in this one. In Las Vegas against a Raiders team who, I know they just lost 3-0, couldn't get anything going on offense against the Vikings, but the Vikings defense has been playing great. They throw so many exotic blitzes at you and confuse guys like a rookie and Aiden O'Connell. I don't see it happening 2 times in a row. The Raiders are favored by 3 in this one, and I will go with the Raiders and the points here. I think the Raiders are going to smoke the Chargers, to be completely honest with you. So if you want to bet that, I would put my money on that one, honestly. I just think the Chargers right now, they're so demoralized. They're going to be without their starting quarterback. The head coach is out the door after the season ends. And then the Raiders are still a little feisty. I know Josh Jacobs got hurt in this past game, but I think they have enough talent on the offense, and the defense is playing well enough to win this game. The Chargers defense has been terrible all season. I think Aiden O'Connell and Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, that whole crew can get things done on the offensive side of the ball. So, yeah, man, that's pretty much it for the podcast. I appreciate everybody listening once again. Please follow, subscribe on TikTok and on YouTube, and I will talk to you guys next week. Peace.